Hello, everybody. It's Donna Cremata, and we are here again for another Real 50 over 50 interview. Now, when I started this a little over a year ago, I knew I was going to meet some incredible women. But if nothing else happened from this whole project, and I just met this woman right here, Marybeth Gregg, I would be happy. So I am so delighted to introduce you to her today. And Mary Beth is a speaker, an author, a workshop facilitator. She's the founder of the International Center for Women's Leadership and Gregg Resources. And Gregg Resource is an HR consulting firm. And she is just incredible. She has been such a gift in my life and in my business. And we're just going to get into a great conversation. So please connect through the chat and through the comments, and we'll have a great conversation. So let's start with what happened when you turned 50, 60, and beyond.
Okay, so that's a loaded question. Like,
My favorite kind.
when I was 50, But first, I want to say, Donnie, I'm grateful for you that when we met last year, you have made such a difference in my life, and it's a blessing to know you and work with you and laugh together and do this. So thank you for that.
Oh, it's my pleasure every single time.
Me too. So I think overall, turning 50, 60, and beyond, what I've learned is to have more courage. And I use that word very specifically. That kind of goes back to how I was raised and my initial socialization of children should be seen and not heard. So I was always quiet, and I came from a very quiet, humble family.
Mm-hmm.
Not that that was a negative. And it was hard for me to speak up in terms of what was important to me. I always felt that that wasn't my role. And it took me quite a while to find my voice and to show up. And I think that started in my 50s and in my 60s to really embrace that self, that um, and it reminds me a little bit about values also. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
know that values have changed. I think some of them have become more prominent and worth me saying, you know what, I'm going to draw the line here, which what I never would have done before.
Yeah.
So you know, I think overall it's about courage. And
Yeah.
it's like, I've earned it, right? I've earned what I do and say at this point through a lot of hard work and experiences and joy and sorrow and grief and hardships, to right now say, you know what, I'm good with where I am. I'm
Yeah.
happy with me. Not that I'm content. I mean, I'm always learning like you, always something different, always like, I have so much more to do and to see and to be that's excitement for me.
Yeah. We definitely connect on that level.
Yeah.
As I was preparing for this interview this morning, I was listening to my favorite podcast, which is Wiser Than Me, Julia Louis Dreyfus's podcast, and um, she was interviewing Gloria Steinem, and they were talking about that when you because Julia Louis Dreyfus asked her because she's like my age in her 60s, early 60s, and um, Gloria Steinem just turned 90. So she said, "What should I prepare for as I'm aging?" And Gloria Steinem just started to kind of almost like expound upon having this freedom. And as you get older, you get freer and freer. And I think that it's almost we give ourselves permission to be who we truly are. And she talked about what I really believe this stage is in. It's not so much about reinventing, but remembering those
Mm.
parts of ourselves that we put aside or gave away. And she talked about going back and finding that inner joy you had as a child, like if you were on a swing or you were roller skating or you went to the beach, and even if you're not physically doing that, you're mentally in that space, that just gives you this freedom to be. And then she said, and I wrote this down so I wouldn't forget, I think it would be great if an army of gray-haired women took over the earth. And they went on to talk about creating this revolution. And that's what we're doing here. We're creating this revolution of wisdom and experience and legacy that, not enough people hear from us.
Right.
So
And
we're going to change that.
and we're here, right?
We're here and we've got so much more.
Yeah, and I think that's what I was talking about before in terms of courage, courage to speak up, courage to not care, to be free. And um, it's- you know, part of you can think like, oh, I wish I had done that earlier, but it didn't, and it's now, and let's enjoy it now.
Yeah.
And when you were talking about the child, the inner child in us, so a couple things. My cousins have two little, uh, well, 9 and 11. And they come to the house and I get the sidewalk chalk out and they're doing hopscotch. And so it's like, I'm going to do this too. It was hard. Like I used to be really good at hopscotch, but I got to laugh at myself.
Exactly. But you can play hopscotch in your mind
Right.
without harming anything.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Yeah,
but yeah, it's like I just feel like we have space that we have not had, and if we're open to seeing what those opportunities are
right, right.
for new things, anything is possible.
Yeah. And for that joy to come out. So
Yeah.
I have really dear friends. They live in Florida and their granddaughter is 4. Oh, I mean, she is just, you look at her picture and you smile. So they had sent me a video last year. They took her to the zoo for the first time. And, she's a tiny thing and she goes up to this giraffe and, so tall and his beautiful, elegant neck, right? He bends over and comes down towards her. The joy on her face and her body lit
Yeah.
up everybody around her. And just seeing the video, it was like, oh my God, it was pure joy. And I think about, we still have that in us, we really do. And it's like, let it out, we'll can talk about that a little bit in terms of how to make that happen. But it's still there. It's still there.
Mm. It's absolutely that. And I do want to talk about that because the title of your book is How to Soar with a Broken Wing, Finding Tiny Moments of Joy in Every Day. So this is her book. And as you can see, tabbed, because that's how I read all my books. So how do you find those tiny moments of joy? And I know that you've had a lot of grief. You lost your husband and, you were a real partnership in business and in life. And like, that was your journey back, finding those teeny moments of joy.
It was, yeah, and he was the love of my life. We were married for 30 years, and so it's been 7 years already. So it's been a very long journey from when he got sick, certainly to now. And um, I don't know why I started the book. I think part of it was I wanted to get my thoughts down for my daughter,
Mm,
and then it kind of went from there. It took me quite a few years to do it. Uh, and part of it was around, um, gosh, there was so much that I learned, and the number one thing for me, which when I do coaching, I work with my coaching clients on this, is to be aware, self-aware. I call it the ABCs. That's the first step in terms of how am I feeling right now? Am I feeling joyful? Am I feeling depleted? And that's how we get so depleted at the end of the day. We feel sometimes there's nothing left. We're on this hamster wheel. So to be aware of where our emotions are every day, every minute, whatever that situation is. And the next step then, the B, is take a little break just to sit back and truly breathe. That gives us time physiologically to get to a different place. We're not acting. That we we're I think, images of reaction, whereas we need to respond, which leaves us into the C, which is to create and be curious. And these are questions, and this is how we find some joy. How else can I feel?
Hmm.
What else can I do? And I think those are two of the most powerful questions, because it tells us that, you know what, I am in control. I have options. I have choices. And I need to allow myself that choice. And so that choice might be, right now I'm very upset, I'm stressed, whatever. Take a little break, and maybe it is just look out at the clouds, at the trees, walk around. One of the things I love to do is to turn on some Latin music, and I dance around my office. Well, that'll get you right out of your funk. I think it was it Marie Forleo said, you can't be stressed and dance at the same time. Can't, it's impossible. So, uh, and that's a tiny moment of joy, if
Yeah,
you allow yourself.
yeah,
Uh,
and it's something anybody can do.
yeah, anybody can do.
You don't
Anybody.
need anything special. You
Yeah,
don't, because those things that you say, I'll do this when I need this, or you put some criteria around it, it's just going to delay,
totally. Right.
finding
Totally.
that tiny moment of joy.
Right. And then you perpetuate that emotion, right? And if it is stress and you're just in it and now not allowing yourself that break, it's going to get worse and worse and worse. And again, back to that hamster wheel, and you don't feel you have any way out.
Yeah,
But by doing the awareness, and okay, is that stress in here? Is it in my stomach? What's going on? And then take a break, and then create options. Be curious.
yeah, and those options, the curiosity, that becomes your pattern interrupt. Because
Absolutely.
if you stay in that stress and the anxiety and worry, what you're doing is you're creating that system in your body as the response.
Totally. Yep.
And when you interrupt it and invite something else in, you actually change that pattern. And that pattern could be decades or even generations old.
Totally. Yes. And again, that's what that awareness comes in. I talked about self awareness.
Hmm.
It's also being aware of our surroundings, what's going on around us. And I'm a great one for just get out in nature, even for a couple of minutes. Even if you live in the city, it doesn't matter. I'm very blessed to live at just 4 blocks from the beach, and I'll go down there. I am pretty good about going down once a day,
Hmm.
morning, afternoon, whatever. This was a few months ago. I was down at the beach and in the afternoon, and it had been raining, and I just put my chair out and I'm getting ready to read. And all of a sudden I look up and there's this magnificent rainbow. It just, oh my goodness. And if I hadn't looked up, I would have never have seen it. And I was thinking there was a lot of people on the beach, they were playing or whatever. And how few people saw that,
Mm.
because, well, they were immersed in what they were doing, but it's just around us. And, oh, I have to share this with you, Donna. So yesterday, I mentioned I live at the beach, and right next to me is this small lake. And about once a year, the dragonflies
Oh,
hatch. So I was in the yard yesterday with a friend of mine, and she looked up and she said, "You have so many dragonflies." And I wasn't looking, and we sat there for a half an hour. There were dozens and dozens of them, and they kept alighting on the had some stakes in my peonies. And just to be there, talk about, now that was mega joy. That wasn't tiny joy. That was mega. um, but if I may not have seen them, but again, just being attuned to what's around us,
yeah, yeah,
that's the joy. Yeah.
yeah. I was writing some content this morning, and I wrote, the content was around listening
Mm.
instead of instead of speaking online. Like listen first, figure out what's around you. And I equated it to the difference of taking an airplane or riding a bicycle,
Mm, yeah,
and
absolutely.
the difference of what you see when you're looking from the ground up.
Right. Yep. Same thing.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. So let's talk a little bit about living with intention, because I know that that's something that you walk your talk.
Right. I do. And that's come also as I've gotten older. And that goes back to not just reacting, but to sit back and say, how do I want to live? One of the things that I have in my book that, and I have to tell you, I don't know if something I came up with a few years ago or someone had told me, but it is really uh, just an incredible way to start the day and set the tone. So when, we usually wake up, it's around, oh, what do I have to do today? And I shift that to how do I want to be today?
Hmm.
And I let that word come out, whatever that is. It could be peaceful, creative, um, loving, uh, love myself today. Whatever that word is, just to let it come out. And then I put um, a little sticky note on my computer to remind me that's how I want to be today. And it's kind of like a beacon, and then we get to the to-do list. And so let me do this thing with joy. Let me do this thing with curiosity. Let me do this thing with love, whatever that is. So it makes the to-do list certainly, you come at it from a whole different perspective and doing it intentionally
Yeah.
versus, oh, I have to do this. We get to do this, and we get to do this in a way that's nourishing.
There's a passage in your book from chapter 8 that I really like. It says, "The world has clouded us from our own instincts and judgment, but we can recultivate those abilities."
Mm,
Can we talk about that a little bit?
yeah. And I think, again, while we do things intentionally, we get to recultivate, right? We get to sow our seeds. We get to choose the seeds that we want in the first place, and um, allow that to grow. Uh, I was listening to, so one of my favorite things to do, and this maybe is to be in terms of taking a break and breathing, is to meditate. And my one of my favorite people in the world, his name is David G. And he talks about how, yeah, we can have all those seeds and cultivate, but we have to make sure that the soil is tended to, that we have enough richness in that soil that it will grow. So that living intentionally is kind of that soil, because we can throw all these seeds in, we can plant things, we can do things, but if we don't have the basis of who we are intentionally, things aren't going to grow.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And what are some of the things that you do other than meditation and dancing to Latin music to set the intentions of how you want to live, how you want to work with people? Maybe what was the intention for starting the International Center for Women's Leadership?
So that came out of a long career
Hmm.
in I was started in human resources before I got into organizational development and then into executive coaching and leadership consulting. And early on in my career, I was usually the only woman in the room at the table, right? And I was very junior, but again, sat back, very quiet, didn't speak up. And I knew inside it didn't feel good, but this went on for years and years and years and years. I would, kind of sit there and I would say something in a very tiny little voice, and nobody would respond or listen. And then one of the guys at the table would come out with the same thing. It's like, oh, that's a really good idea. And I'm saying,
That sounds familiar.
what about me? But looking back, years later, I recognize that I did that. Nobody did that to me.
Mhm.
And that was kind of a relief because I wasn't in victim mode.
Mhm.
It was around, okay, now what can I do
Yeah.
with this right now? How can I be different?
Mhm.
And that was a real aha, shift for me. So did it happen overnight? Nope. It took a while to be able, again, that courage, right, to get up and to really stand up and have the voice and show your presence and show that light that light inside us. And that's where that's been a theme of mine, to be the light and to give light to other people.
Mhm.
Um, One of the things that I do every year, I had a wonderful coach, is it's called an intention wheel. So you set your intention for the year, not your goals, not any of that, but your intention. And mine has been to lighten up. And that helps me to, like, again, when I feel something is so serious, lighten up. Again, we burn that right now, to lighten up.
Yeah.
uh, and again, it's permission to do that.
It is permission, and it's permission that, we don't have to carry every one of those bricks.
Right,
We get
exactly.
to choose the ones we want.
Exactly right. So at the work I do in the center, and mostly coaching women leaders, business owners, and that is around finding that inner wonderful, incredible woman who's there and ready to come out. Confidence, courage, self confidence is a big one.
Mm.
So a lot of the work that I do with men and women is around self confidence. Even though they're in these amazing positions or have this incredible business, there's still that piece.
Yeah. Well, every day is a new opportunity to either prove it to yourself that you belong there, or beat yourself up that how did I get here?
Right,
Why am I here? Who's going to listen to me?
right,
And you get to choose which way you go.
right. Yep. Those choices again, living intentionally.
Yeah, that's amazing. And let's talk a little bit about letting go. We touched on that with the last bit of conversation. How do you help people and yourself um, decide what stays and what goes?
Mhm. Yep. So, um, and I have the analogy for myself that even though I've traveled all over the world, I've never learned to pack lightly.
Hmm.
I have to have everything for every possible, event that might happen. 5 pairs of shoes when I need to. But I don't know, that something in me that I just keep stuffing things in. And that happens to us too emotionally. We have this backpack here, this emotional backpack, and we keep putting things in and putting things in until it's so heavy that something breaks. It could be ourself, our anger could come out at other people that it had nothing to do with how we're feeling, but we have this self-imposed load that we have on us. And I think part of that too is, and I think this is more for women, is to show that we have to be perfect.
Hmm.
So in being perfect, it's hard to let go because we have this perception of how we think other people need us or think of us, and we're always outer directive versus inner directive. And letting go is around, again, really, really being in touch with what is pulling us down, what is depleting us. One of the things that this is I'm a very practical person, is that I have people do is make 3 circles for happy faces. The first one, make a happy face. The second one, just neutral. And the third one, a droopy face. And underneath that, just list the things that bring you joy, that make you happy. The second one lists things that are just okay, like for me, I don't mind ironing. Um, that's fine. And the third thing is what's really dragging me down, what's depleting me. And you get to focus, and maybe it's somebody that really triggers you, right? It could be their voice tone. It could be you're giving, giving, giving all the time to another person, and you start to get really, you resent that, you get really angry about that, and that's in your unhappy face column. And when you look at that and really focus on that, those are the things that you can allow yourself to let go.
Mhm.
You have to take a deep dive into that, right? Why am I so resentful? Why do I let this person trigger me? Why am I always giving but not taking?
Mhm.
So you have to get into the why. What's your why? That's so powerful with everything we do. What's your why?
Yeah.
And then the second thing on letting go, Donna, is really around um, what's driving me to hold on. Is it pleasure? Is it pain? I mean, what's the driver behind that?
Mm.
That's kind of the why as well. And then to really, again, in this deep dive, really think about what will happen if I do let go.
I love that question.
Yeah, what are the effects? And a lot of times it's like, not so much, right? Other than I'm going to feel a whole lot better, when I'm allow myself to say no, right? Boundaries.
Yeah.
That's a lot with letting go. Our boundaries self-imposed most of the time.
Yeah. I
And
have a sister 9 years older than me. So, she was like the Lord over me from the minute I was born. And, she started every sentence with, "You have to."
okay, right,
And until I was in my 30s, 40s even, I didn't realize that I didn't have to do what she said I had to do.
right,
The
right,
first time I pushed back, I was so nervous. I was terrified. And I just, I said, "No." And she was like, "Okay." I was like,
right. Exactly. What will happen? As I said, not much. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you use the word have to. I do a lot of work with language and effects of words on other people. And again, self-awareness of the words we're using. And
"Mhm,
a lot of words are so emotionally charged, like you should, right? Well, first of all, we don't do our shoulds. Nobody does their shoulds. You must, you have to. Um, and when we turn them on ourselves, this is really interesting how this works. So you have a goal. So I want to um, go to the gym three days a week. I'd like to go to the gym 3 days a week. I should go to the gym 3 days a week. It would be nice if I would. I could go to the gym 3 days a week. All of those words have to, like, would, should, they don't produce effects. They just simply, it's physiology. They're neutral words to our brain and not going to move us to what we want. When we switch that to, I am
mhm."
going to the gym 3 days a week, it has a whole different effect for sure.
Yeah.
So
It's definitive.
yeah, it is. So we need
And
to be aware of our language again, both on ourselves and to other people.
and Gregory's adding some good commentary here, that we hold on to negativity because of a perceived benefit. If there was a benefit to holding resentment, what would it be?
And the answer may surprise
Yeah.
you. Yeah,
The answer is probably we don't have to.
yeah, exactly. We don't have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Gregory.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks. That's great. So we're kind of coming up at the end here already, believe it or not. But I like to ask all of my guests to leave us with a wisdom bomb. something actionable or something that is really meaningful to you, something that you want people to take away with them.
So I think we've touched on this a little bit, and I'll use the word legacy, that we all have a legacy. It's not just for the rich and famous, it's for every one of us. And in that is how, not just how we, what we do, right? It's about how other people feel around us. What's our impact? Every little interaction we have, if it's someone at the checkout counter, it's about kindness because we never know the effect that we have on other people. And I think if we live more with kindness and intention at the end of our lives, right? And that's what we're talking about when we look back. It's probably not about I've amassed this fortune or done this or written this book, whatever. It's really around feeling that the people that we've touched have been better off because they have known us.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Thank you. And thank you for joining us today. And everybody, please connect with Mary Beth. I put her two websites down at the bottom. And she is here on the Real 50 Over 50 platform. And we'll be back next week with another interview. Thank you, everybody. And keep the conversation going on the replay. Tag us with any comments or questions that you have, and we'll come back and keep it going. Have a great Wednesday, everybody.
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you.